Welcome to episode 2 of the Zach and Matt Show, featuring Zach
and Matt.
So this is our new weekly podcast, which will release every single Sunday, and you can get a recap of all the major news from the previous week.
Yeah, we're going to be talking the primaries, the Democratic candidates, maybe some Trump, Yang, obviously.
Yeah. So this past week, it was dominated by the fourth Democratic debate.
Oh, yeah.
So in this episode, we're going to do a breakdown of the whole debate, all the important moments that we caught.
And the funny moments. Oh,
yeah, and at the end, we'll do debate winners and losers. We'll have a timestamp so you can jump straight to it.
Yeah, if you don't want to hear us mumble and moan for 30 minutes.
Let's start with the Trump impeachment question. That's what the debate started out with.
I thought it was very dumb that they started with the Trump impeachment question. It's a waste of time. We already see Trump in the news 24/7. There's no reason to spend a whole 30-minute section of the debate on Trump. It's ridiculous. We have actual issues to tackle.
I see you were very passionate about that. You were talking a mile a minute.
I was trying to on purpose. That's my goal with this podcast, is to talk very quickly.
Oh, then you can be like Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And people will think you're just smart because you talk fast.
Yeah.
But then if you make good points with that, then you're like in a...
Oh, that's the struggle, though.
I have a clip ready for showing how most of the candidates answered the question of Trump impeachment. You can see a trend here that most of them are just trying to one-up each other and really don't have any unique thing to bring to the table answering the question.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's kind of a dumb question in the first place, is because you ask the same question to every single candidate, like, should Trump be impeached? They're all Democrats. They're all going to say he should be impeached. So every single person that goes after has to find a new way to make their impeachment pitch sound better. Mm-hmm. It's just silly.
Okay, so I am going to play the first clip.
You know, we took a constitutional oath, and that is that no one is above the law, and that includes the President of the United States.
This is a president who is enriching himself while using the Oval Office to do that, and that is outrageous.
This president, and I agree with Bernie, Senator Sanders, is the most corrupt president in modern history, and I think all of our history.
He is indeed the most corrupt and unpatriotic president we have ever had.
I swore an oath to do my job as a senator, do my duty. This president has violated his. I will do mine.
He's digging up dirt on an opponent. That's illegal conduct.
We have to impeach this president.
Look, the president has left the Congress with no choice.
I think that it should continue to play its course out, to gather all the information.
I started the Need to Impeach movement because I knew there was something desperately wrong at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
If we do not hold him to account, if there is not justice, not only have we failed this moment, our Constitution and our country, but we have failed everyone who has sacrificed and laid their lives down on the line.
All right, so that was what all the candidates had to say about impeachment. And you notice that they were just pretty repetitive, saying the same stuff after one another.
Yeah, which is why it shouldn't have been asked in the first place.
Yeah. But Yang, he was the second to last person to answer this question, and he brought a unique perspective to it.
And I think that him actually going at the end helped his answer more.
Because people were getting tired of
got a good demonstration of exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah. So now I'm going to play Yang's clip.
Mr. Yang, do you think there's already enough evidence out there to impeach the president? Please respond.
I support impeachment, but we shouldn't have any illusions that impeaching Donald Trump will, one, be successful, or two, erase the problems that got him elected in 2016. We're standing in the great state of Ohio, the ultimate purple state, the ultimate bellwether state. Why did Donald Trump win your state by 8 points? Because we got rid of 300,000 manufacturing jobs in your towns. And we're not stopping there. How many of you have noticed stores closing where you work and live here in Ohio? Raise your hands. It's not just you. Amazon alone is closing 30% of America's stores and malls, soaking up $20 billion in business while paying zero in taxes. These are the problems that got Donald Trump elected, the fourth industrial revolution. And that is going to accelerate and grow more serious regardless of who is in the Oval Office. The fact is, Donald Trump, when we're talking about him, we are losing. We need to present a new vision, and that even includes talking about impeaching Donald Trump.
Okay. So that was the clip on Yang. What do you have to say about it?
I really liked his answer just because we are losing when we talk about Trump. And I've kind of tuned out the whole situation at this point. Like, I don't even follow the Trump stuff anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think the most important part of his answer is the part about presenting a vision.
Yeah.
That's what really gets you supporters and like genuine people that want to vote for you.
Well, that's what separates him from candidates like Kamala, who don't really have their own vision. They just kind of repeat the same like emotional appeals over and over again. Mm-hmm. The only thing I thought Yang could have worked on his answer was the ending. I thought it was like a little weak. Like
also not hitting the mic. He did it 3 times during the debate.
Yeah. But that's okay.
And he's just done it in past debates.
He's just so
he gets energized.
You can just see can see Yang's energy like rising when he through events like debates and rallies.
Yeah. Like his confidence has
the
gone
LA
up.
rally, he was like you could see he was like.
So then after the impeachment question, they asked Joe Biden a question about the Ukraine scandal and about his son Hunter Biden. Here's what he had to say about it.
Vice President Biden?
Look, my son did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. I carried out the policy of the United States government in rooting out corruption in Ukraine. And that's what we should be focusing on. My son's statement speaks for itself. He spoke about it today. Rudy Giuliani, the president, and his thugs have already proven that they, in fact, are flat lying. What we have to do now is focus on Donald Trump. He doesn't want me to be the candidate. He's going after me because he knows if I get the nomination, I will beat him like a drum.
Oh, beat him like a drum, Matt.
So Biden's answer to the Ukraine question was basically, let's just talk about Trump instead. And we literally just spent 30 minutes talking about Trump.
Well, I think with this impeachment stuff, it's the main thing that's going to come from it is it's going to be the collapse of Biden, probably.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I think ultimately this makes him unelectable because how can you run a candidate against Trump and your main argument against Trump is that he's a super corrupt person. Mm-hmm. And then you have your own like skeletons in the closet.
But in terms of for Biden, like his path to being elected, he really has to stay on the point that he's the best one to defeat Donald Trump.
Yeah,
because that's his line of argument.
What you said earlier in terms of vision, he doesn't necessarily have a vision.
Yeah.
So that's what he's running on is electability.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting after that segment plays. I think they're like, now we're going to move on to healthcare, and Kamala Harris is like, it might have been someone else, but I'm going to assume it was Kamala.
It was Cory Booker.
Oh, it was Cory Booker?
Yeah.
It's like, we cannot move on.
Oh, yeah, he kept disrupting.
We can't move on. This is too important.
Thank you. We're going to keep Senator
Warren. It is wrong to move on.
It's like, no, this is a Democratic primary debate. You should be discussing your policies, not the man on the other side of the aisle.
I honestly don't know what Cory Booker is doing. He's spending the entire debates speaking just in kind of like large platitudes and being like, let's unite the country and like, let's not attack other Democrats and stuff like that. But he doesn't say anything like about his own policies and like what he stands for.
I mean, he sounds good while he does it though.
Oh, he sounds excellent, dude. The man's rehearsed. He's an expert politician. I actually watched his documentary from his 2002 campaign for mayor or something. It's called like Street Fight. I watched it yesterday. It was actually pretty good.
Oh,
yeah. I can
out.
send you the YouTube link, man.
All right.
I was thinking about sending it to you yesterday.
Okay.
All right, so let's move on to Medicare for All because that was the next round of questions. And the main thing here is that this week coming up to the debate, Elizabeth Warren was kind of becoming the front runner in a lot of the polls. So she went under attack a lot here. People were going after Warren. And Warren continually kept dodging the question on whether she'll raise taxes to pay for Medicare for All.
I don't know if she was under attack. I think she was just kind of getting called out because everyone knows the answer. Like they're just looking for you to say it. Like, I mean, we could talk about it more after we play the.
Will you raise taxes on the middle class to pay for it? Yes or no?
So I have made clear what my principles are here, and that is costs will go up for the wealthy and for big corporations, and for hardworking middle-class families, costs will go down.
Senator Sanders acknowledges he's going to raise taxes on the middle class to pay for Medicare for All. You've endorsed his plan. Should you acknowledge it too?
So the way I see this, it is about what kinds of costs middle-class families are going to face. So let me be clear on this. Costs will go up for the wealthy, they will go up for big corporations, and for middle-class families, they will go down.
So she won't directly say whether she's going to raise taxes. She's using the cost argument, which is, I think, technically the correct result. I haven't read studies on it myself, but from what I've heard, the net cost of Medicare for all will be lower. So your taxes will go up, but the overall cost for families will go down.
Yep.
But she won't actually say the fact that the taxes are going to go up because she doesn't want to get that idea in people's minds.
Yeah, so the argument is that if they ask her a yes or no question, it would make a really good soundbite for the Republicans if someone's like, yes or no, will taxes go up? Yes, and then they would just cut it off there and not give her explanation. They wouldn't play her explanation. But the thing is, you're saying that you support Bernie's Medicare for All plan, and Bernie himself says that your taxes will go up, and he's very clear about it. Your taxes will go up, but the net cost will go down because you're not paying those premiums out of pocket anymore.
Well, there is a big battle going on in the primary, or in this debate between the moderates and Warren over this issue, and I'll show you what the moderates had to say in the next clip.
Well, we heard it tonight, a yes or no question that didn't get a yes or no answer. Look, this is why people here in the Midwest are so frustrated with Washington in general and Capitol Hill in particular. Your signature, Senator, is to have a plan for everything, except this. No plan has been laid out to explain how a multi-trillion-dollar hole in this Medicare for All plan that Senator Warren is putting forward is supposed to get filled in.
At least Bernie's being honest here and saying how he's going to pay for this and that taxes are going to go up. And I'm sorry, Elizabeth, but you have not said that. And I think we owe it to the American people to tell them where we're going to send the invoice.
Deal. On the single most important thing facing the American public, I think it's awfully important to be straightforward with them. The plan is going to cost at least $30 trillion over 10 years. That is more on a yearly basis than the entire federal budget. And we talk about how we're going to pay for it. The study recently came out showing that, in fact, it will reduce cost. But for people making between $50,000 and $75,000 a year, their taxes are going to go up about $5,000. Because the fact is, they'll pay more in new taxes, 7.4%. Plus or 5% plus a 4% income tax. If a fireman and a school teacher are making $100,000 a year, their taxes are going to go up about 10 grand. That is more than they will possibly save on this health care plan. We have a plan put forward that will work.
What do you think of Biden's math? Do you think he's right?
See, I get conflicting math all the time on Medicare for All because when we listen to Kyle Kulinski's Secular Talk, all the lefties online, they always say that Medicare for All will be the net cost will be lower. But with Biden's math here in this argument, and when I talk to my dad about healthcare, he's like, it's not possible. There's no way that would be lower.
Regardless of whether their math is right or wrong, Warren has to have a better. Honestly, as a front-runner candidate, and this is a question she's been asked over and over again, she should have a snap right to it, rehearsed line that she goes very into that kind of just dispels the whole problem.
She seemed flustered when people would attack her on something or challenge something she said. And we'll see more of that later in future clips.
She could take a page out of Kyle Kulinski's book, which basically when they ask whether the taxes are going to go up, you actually say, no, I'm actually going to cut taxes. And then you stop and wait to hear what they have to say because they'll be so stunned.
Yeah.
Neither of us even really agree with Medicare for All. We're open to the idea, I think, but we're not there yet. Or
I want to see
the
more
answers yet because we might not ever be there, but we could. But then you go on to your explanation. And she could find some clever way to word it where there's no sort of sound bite. I mean, she's smart. She can figure out how to say that the taxes are going to go up, but make it over a 30-second thing that can't just be put into a 5-second soundbite for the Republicans.
Kyle does a fantastic job of explaining it because he uses public tax and private tax, and he's basically saying that the premiums and deductibles that you pay right now, it's a private tax you're paying to private companies.
Are you going to raise taxes on the middle class in order to pay for Medicare for All? No, because I'm eliminating the private taxes and raising the public taxes. The private taxes are premiums, copays, deductibles, every sort of fee that you pay to a private health insurance company, that's a tax. You have to pay it in order to get your health care. I'm eliminating the private taxes, raising the public taxes, but there will be a net savings of thousands of dollars for your average family. So no, I'm not raising taxes.
I think he's actually, regardless of what you think of like his opinions and how he sometimes like treats his opponents, I think he's like a pretty smart guy. He's like very good at like selling his policies and making them sound good. Did you see what his name for Yang's freedom dividend would be?
No.
He said he liked freedom dividend, but he liked his name a little bit more.
What was his
He would have called it Social Security for all.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah, but I don't like that because the Republicans would hate it.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like freedom dividend's easier for crossover appeal.
Yeah,
but I don't know if Kyle necessarily cares about crossover appeal.
No.
Kyle Kulinski is my go-to for lefty news.
So we're moving on to the next section of the debate, which was automation and UBI, which is amazing that Andrew Yang has influenced the whole political landscape of the Democratic primary.
So I actually saw an article this morning. It was saying, it was from Gizmodo saying, it was published after the June debate, saying that Andrew Yang failed to make automation a major issue during the debate.
What?
No, this is from after the June debate.
Okay.
So I just thought it was interesting because he didn't then, but it clearly is now. I think that was a bad expectation. Like, how is someone that nobody really knows in his first debate going to just take over?
In the first debate where we got 6 minutes of time.
It wasn't even 6. I think it was like 4.5.
Yeah.
A lot of people are actually saying this upcoming segment was like historic in the sense that it was the first time ever that the idea of a universal basic income was discussed on a national debate stage. Which actually is, if you actually think about it, if like say hopefully it's, in just like 2 years when Yang wins, but if it's like 5, 10, 20 years or whatever, when universal basic income is a thing, because I think it will eventually be a thing, people might actually like look back on that night. Obviously I want Yang to win. I think he can win and I hope he wins, but his candidacy is already like a success in the sense that he's brought something to the table that wasn't talked about previously. So play a clip.
Well, actually, this clip is going to be about Bernie and Yang talking about the federal jobs guarantee versus universal basic income.
Senator Sanders, you say your federal jobs guarantee is part of the answer to the threat from automation. But tens of millions of Americans could end up losing their jobs. Are you promising that you will have a job for every single one of those Americans?
Damn right we will. And I'll tell you why. If you look at what goes on in America today, we have an infrastructure which is collapsing. We could put 15 million people to work rebuilding our roads, our bridges, our water systems, our wastewater plants, airports, etc.
Senator Sanders, thank you. Mr. Yang, your main solution to job loss from automation is a universal basic income. Why is giving people $1,000 a month better than Sanders' plan to guaranteeing them a job?
I am for the spirit of a federal jobs guarantee, but you have to look at how it would actually materialize in practice. What are the jobs? Who manages you? What if you don't like your job? What if you're not good at your job? The fact is, most Americans do not want to work for the federal government. And saying that that is the vision of the economy of the 21st century, to me, is not a vision that most Americans would embrace. Also, Senator Sanders' description of a federal jobs guarantee does not take into account the work of people like my wife, who's at home with our 2 boys, one of whom is autistic. We have a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month. It actually recognizes the work that is happening in our families and our communities. It helps all Americans transition. Because the fact is, and you know this in Ohio, if you rely upon the federal government to target its resources, you wind up with failed retraining programs and jobs that no one wants. When we put the money into our hands, we can build a trickle-up economy. From our people, our families, and our communities up, it will enable us to do the kind of work that we want to do. This is the sort of positive vision in response to the 4th Industrial Revolution that we have to embrace as a party.
So I think this was a softball question for Yang because it's just something that he already has, like, he said in like a stump speech, like 30 seconds why exactly we should have a UBI over FJG. So I was thinking about it last night, and I think UBI is actually so genius in Yang's version because all these politicians, they have like 10 different solutions, like 10 different policies to solve 10 different problems, from higher education or like student debt, like hunger, homelessness, just poverty in general, all these different things, retirement savings, all sorts of different stuff. Like Warren was pushing a $200 like Social Security increase to help like seniors. But if you just give every single person $1,000 a month, you don't have to think about 37 different programs. It's all under one thing. The Americans get the money, and then they can divvy it up how they want to. It's so incredibly smart.
Fantastic policy. If you can't tell, we support Yang.
Wait, what? We support Yang? I thought we just made all these videos for fun.
My favorite part of the automation segment was when Warren and Yang kind of went head to head on this, because Warren, she was asked a question about how she came out and said that automation is not a big problem for the elimination of jobs in manufacturing. And she said it's entirely trade-based.
Senator Warren, you wrote that blaming job loss on automation is, quote, a good story, except it's not really true. So should workers here in Ohio not be worried about losing their jobs to automation?
So the data show that we've had a lot of problems with losing jobs, but the principal reason has been bad trade policy. The principal reason has been a bunch of corporations, giant multinational corporations, who've been calling the shots on trade, giant multinational corporations that have no loyalty to America. They have no loyalty to American workers.
Instead of having to pay 20% of their income for it.
Senator Warren, I've been talking to Americans around the country about automation, and they're smart. They see what's happening around them. Their Main Street stores are closing. They see a self-serve kiosk in every McDonald's, every grocery store, every CVS. Driving a truck is the most common job in 29 states, including this one. 3.5 million truck drivers in this country, and my friends in California are piloting self-driving trucks. What is that going to mean for the 3.5 million truckers or the 7 million Americans who work in truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal? Saying this is a rules problem is ignoring the reality that Americans see around us every single day.
Senator Warren, respond, please.
So I understand that what we're all looking for is how we strengthen America's middle class. And actually, I think the thing closest to the universal basic income is Social Security.
Thank you, Senator Warren.
I see this as an important question about I want to understand the data on this.
Senator,
and
thank you very
much. I want to make sure
much.
We're responding to make this work.
Your time is up. I want to give Congressman.
So did you guys catch Pete Buttigieg said something to the effect of, like, when Yang finished his answer, like, that's exactly what I'm saying. Repeat. Too good. I loved that Yang butted in. Mm-hmm. When that happened, we were together. We were both excited. We were just like, yeah, get in there. And I like that.
We were like, Yang has to talk about this.
I like that Erin Burnett of CNN was like, go ahead, Mr. Yang, because she seemed she could have like not let him talk if she really wanted to, but she had enough respect for Yang and his, like, knowing that this is his issue to let him respond. So
that was a good job by the CNN moderator.
I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, he would have gotten to, like, go right back at her again. But well, we got to wait till he's officially in the top tier. You know what was so dumb about, like, some of the post-debate analysis? What? A lot of people had Yang as, like, one of the winners, or at least, like, someone who did well. But there were other outlets that said he was, like, a loser. Like, New York Times, I think, did a ranking of, like, 5 opinion people, and they all had Yang, like, in the bottom third. And then I don't know how, in any sense, this debate could be a loss for Yang, because you literally had Julian Castro bring up UBI, Tulsi Gabbard mentioned UBI, Warren mentioned UBI, Booker mentioned the UBI, Biden mentioned the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So if you're someone who never heard of Yang, but say you're like, oh, I love Elizabeth Warren, you watch the Elizabeth Warren highlights, and you're her in a back and forth with Yang talking about the debating universal basic income, you might be like, what is this universal basic income? Who's that Asian guy standing next to Pete Buttigieg?
And when you find out that Warren's wrong and Yang was right, oh my God, it's going to be amazing.
That's stage 2 of Yang.
Yeah.
Like, stage 1 is like, who is this guy? This guy has no chance. His policies suck. Stage 2 is like, wait a second, I need to learn more. Stage 3 is like, oh my God. Stage 4 is that's where you're like, campaign mode.
We're going on to the next section, which will be the wealth tax.
Right now in America, the top 0.1% have so much wealth. Understand this, that if we put a 2-cent tax on their 50 millionth and first dollar, and on every dollar after that, we would have enough money to to provide universal child care for every baby in this country aged 0 to 5, universal pre-K for every child, raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in America, provide for universal tuition-free college, put $50 billion into historically black colleges and universities.
Thank you, Senator Warren.
No, let me finish, please. And cancel student loan debt for 95% of the people who have it. My question is not why do Bernie and I support a wealth tax? It's why does everyone else on this stage think it is more important to protect billionaires than it is to invest in an entire generation of Americans?
Thank you, Senator Warren. Yang, your response. Would you impose a wealth tax?
Senator Warren is 100% right that we're in the midst of the most extreme winner-take-all economy in history. And a wealth tax makes a lot of sense in principle. The problem is that it's been tried in Germany, France, Denmark, Sweden, and all those countries ended up repealing it because it had massive implementation problems and did not generate the revenue that they'd projected. If we can't learn from the failed experiences of other countries, what can we learn from? We should not be looking to other countries' mistakes. Instead, we should look at what Germany, France, Denmark, and Sweden still have, which is a value-added tax. If we give the American people a tiny slice of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every robot truck mile, every Facebook ad, we can generate hundreds of billions of dollars and then put it into our hands because we know best how to use it.
So one thing that I noticed straight away with Yang's answer is, besides the fact that he's very smart in the sense that both with this question and the federal jobs guarantee,
he showed respect to Warren.
Because not only are you showing respect to those politicians, those candidates, you're showing respect to their voters and their base. You don't want to offend the voters by
bring them in
attacking. Even though he was not attacking, but if he comes off in a way that sounds like he's attacking, it's going to rub those voters the wrong way. And also, I like that he brings up all the countries where the value-added tax has been tried because, like Bernie, for example, he loves to be like, we are the only industrialized country without guaranteed health care. And Yang saying we're like one of the only countries that doesn't have this value-added tax that makes sure companies like Amazon can't pay $0 in federal income tax.
So I'm not a big fan of the wealth tax personally, just because I think the money is already being taxed like at so many different levels before it becomes part of like your wealth and your assets. And also, like Yang says, it's very hard to implement, which is why it's been repealed at so many places where they've had a wealth tax, because it's hard to actually estimate someone's worth and based on all their assets and everything. And it's also the problem with people then leaving the country because they don't want their wealth to be forever taxed annually.
Yeah, I think you just kind of hit everything. I was going to bring that up, like people potentially leaving the country, but you already hit it. So good job, Zach. Good work. Love it.
All right, so that means let's move on to the next section, which will be guns and the mandatory buyback. Now, Beto and Pete got heated in this one. They were trying to kill each other, basically, trying to cancel each other's campaigns.
Yeah, so this whole little segment is kind of like, I feel like unnecessary, but CNN actually played it up, and it's like 6 things to watch before the debate. They were like Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, and O'Rourke they've been going at it publicly, feuding over guns for weeks.
Yeah, no, this Pete and like Beto feud, I honestly don't care about it at all. I don't know if anyone does, but it's definitely a feud that they have going back and forth.
They have some points because Beto kind of screwed himself.
Congressman O'Rourke, in the last debate, you said, quote, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. But when you were asked how you'd enforce a mandatory buyback, you said police wouldn't be going door to door. So how exactly are you going to force people to give up their weapons? You don't even know who has those weapons.
Look, we're going to make sure that the priority is saving the lives of our fellow Americans. So I expect my fellow Americans to follow the law, the same way that we enforce any provision, any law that we have right now. We don't go door to door to do anything in this country to enforce the law. I expect Republicans, Democrats, gun owners, non-gun owners alike
Congressman,
to
let me
respect and follow the law.
Just to follow up, your expectations aside, your website says you will fine people who don't give up their weapons. That doesn't take those weapons off the street. So to be clear, exactly how are you going to take away weapons from people who do not want to give them up and you don't know where they are?
If someone does not turn in an AR-15 or an AK-47, one of these weapons of war, or brings it out in public and brandishes it in an attempt to intimidate, as we saw when we were at Kent State recently, then that weapon will be taken from them. If they persist, there will be other consequences from law enforcement. But the expectation is that Americans will follow the law.
Mayor Buttigieg, just yesterday, you referred to mandatory buybacks as confiscation and said that Congressman O'Rourke has been picking a fight to try to stay relevant. Your response on guns?
Well, Congressman, you just made it clear that you don't know how this is actually going to take weapons off the streets. If you can develop the plan further, I think we can have a debate about it, but we can't wait. People are dying in the streets right now. We can't wait for universal background checks that we finally have a shot to actually get through. We can't wait to ban the sale of new weapons and high-capacity magazines so we don't wind up with millions more of these things on the street. We can't wait for red flag laws that are going to disarm domestic abusers and prevent suicides, which are not being talked about nearly enough as a huge part of the gun violence epidemic in this country. We cannot wait for purity tests. We have to just get something done.
This is not a purity test. This is a country that loses 40,000 of our fellow Americans every year to gun violence. This is a crisis, and we've got to do something about it. And those challenges that you described are not mutually exclusive to the challenges that I'm describing. I want to make sure we have universal background checks and red flag laws and that we end the sale of these weapons of war. But to use the analogy of healthcare, it would be as though we said, look, we're for primary care, but let's not talk about mental health care because that's a bridge too far. People need that primary care now, so let's save that for another day. No, let's decide what we are going to believe in, what we are going to achieve, and then let's bring this country together in order to do that and not be limited by the polls and the consultants and the focus groups. Let's do what's right while we have time to do what's right.
Mayor Buttigieg?
The problem isn't the polls. The problem is the policy. And I don't need lessons from you on courage, political or personal. Everyone on this stage is determined to get something done. Everyone on this stage recognizes, or at least I thought we did, that the problem is not other Democrats who don't agree with your particular idea of how to handle this. The problem is the National Rifle Association and their enablers in Congress, and we should be united in taking the fight to them.
That's a mischaracterization, Anderson. I've got to answer this. Never took you or anyone else on who disagrees with me on this issue. But when you, Mayor Buttigieg, described this policy as a shiny object, I don't care what that meant to me or my candidacy, but to those who have survived gun violence, those who've lost a loved one to an AR-15 and AK-47, March for Our Lives, formed in the courage of students willing to stand up to the NRA and conventional politics and poll-tested politicians. That was a slap in the face to every single one of those groups and every single survivor of a mass casualty assault with an AR-15 and an AK-47.
We are at the cusp of building a new American majority to actually do things that congressmen and senators have been talking about with almost no impact for my entire adult life. No, this is really important, okay? On guns, we are this close to an assault weapons ban. That would be huge. And we're going to get wrapped around the axle in a debate over whether it's hell yes, we're going to take your guns. We have an opportunity to deliver health care to everybody. And some on this stage are saying it doesn't count unless we obliterate.
I want to give somebody. I want to give other candidates.
All right. So what do you think of Beto's whole won't explain to Pete how he's going to take the guns? And apparently
that's because you can explain to him.
Well, apparently he actually, in like his post-debate interview, like clarified his answer and was like, "Oh yes, we are going to like go to the houses." I don't know if that's
exactly a horrible policy. If that's what it is,
it is a horrible policy. A mandatory gun buyback it's
not good. We talked about this in our episode 1 podcast. I side with
So if you want to like go through that in the 4 hours and find where we're talking about it, how bad.
Yeah. Well, Pete was going hard here, trying to make this like his moment.
He was going hard the whole debate.
He really was. He was trying to make this his debate to like kind of like push him ahead.
And he kind of did in some senses. Like the media definitely took him.
No, I think he actually had a very good debate. Kyle Kalinske said he had a horrible debate.
I agree with you. I think he did have a good debate. I know a lot of people said he didn't have a good debate. But I think if you're like the average Democratic voter and you watch that,
he appealed to moderates very well.
Yeah.
In the debate.
Yeah, he's not going to appeal to progressives.
In terms of Pete's attacks in the clip, when he attacked Beto's position, I felt like he kind of mischaracterized Beto's position. Like he was saying that, basically assuming that Beto wasn't for like red flag laws and universal background checks because he was spending all this time talking about a mandatory buyback.
What Pete's point could be is that if we focus on mandatory buybacks, the Republicans are going to get so overarmed, like
that none of these other things
hold
will
up
get
the
done.
agenda of other gun.
That was his point, but I think he went too far mischaracterizing Beto's position, because then Beto came back and he was like, "Well, I support all those things too."
Democratic debate, Zach. Nobody knows if you mischaracterize anyone.
Yeah,
it's just sound bites. And
in the Pete Beto feud, I think it's pretty much over. I think Beto's definitely on his way out. Pete's here to stay though for a long time.
Not Pete. Beto might not even make the next debate.
I don't think he will.
It'll be interesting. There's been the only poll that's really consistently showed him getting enough support is the Hill Harris X poll, and that poll doesn't qualify. So, like, he's been getting 4% in that. But every other poll, he's like at like 0 or 1. I think the Emerson poll that had Yang in Iowa at 5%. I think Beto might have been at like 0 or 1. Which is weird. He had so much money, but it's all dried up. It's all switched to Buttigieg. Buttigieg just really stole Beto's thunder.
Completely stole it.
Yeah. But I think Buttigieg probably is a better candidate than Beto.
He is. All right, so the next clip that I had planned kind of was Bernie Sanders coming back from the heart attack and talking about his health.
Senator, we are all very glad you're feeling well, as you just said. But there is a question on a lot of people's minds, and I want to address it tonight. You're 78 years old, and you just had a heart attack. How do you reassure Democratic voters that you're up to the stress of the presidency?
Well, let me invite you all to a major rally we're having in Queens, New York, BernieSanders.com. We're going to have a special guest at that event, and we are going to be mounting a vigorous campaign all over this country. That is how I think I can reassure the American people. But let me take this moment, if I might, to thank so many people from all over this country, including many of my colleagues up here, for their love, for their prayers, for their well wishes. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm so happy to be back here with you this evening.
While he was at the hospital, he tweeted, "I'm glad to be home in Burlington to rest for a little bit. I want to thank all of you for your well wishes, love, and support over the week. I'm recovering and feeling better." Then he goes, "I am more determined than ever to fight alongside you to make healthcare a human right."
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good Bernie impression? I don't know.
I've heard better.
Oh yeah, I got to work on it. But I can do a good Trump impersonation. So we're gonna talk about Trump at some point.
But with this whole Bernie heart attack thing, the procedure he got done was he got stents put in, and actually his health should be significantly better from now on.
Yeah, people are saying it's like a pretty standard procedure. It's not like he had like open heart surgery.
Yeah.
I think Bernie did a really good job in the debate, showing that he's still like
he had energy in this one.
I mean, he always kind of has energy. Mm-hmm. I mean, they always say he's like the angry guy yelling up at there. I thought it was kind of interesting for CNN to ask about his health after in the week prior they played a video of him where they purposefully messed with the color balance settings of the camera to make his face appear all red, and we're going to show it on the screen right now, so you can see that it's just like. You'll see on the left side, Bernie has got a super red face, and then on the right side, or on the next picture, is what he actually looks like. I mean, that's just like absurd.
Yeah,
and they get away with it too. It's crazy. Like there's no.
It's just the small details like that.
It's like before the debate, the New York Times, they lowered Yang's height. I mean, it's such a small thing, but it's so ridiculous too. And you know, another thing that bothers me about that is it's kind of like playing into like the stereotype that like Asian men are short. So one thing we wanted to do on debate night was hopefully upload a Tulsi Destroys video, because as most of you know, she pretty much ended Kamala Harris's career in the second debate.
We were speculating who she would end next.
We were wondering, and we thought it was going to be Warren. Yeah. And of course we were right, but CNN stopped her. I know there was some like conspiracy saying like, oh, CNN like purposely cut Tulsi's attack off there. I don't believe that at all, because they were doing commercial breaks like every like at the hour pretty much.
And that was really like on pace with where the next one should have been.
And she was, I rewatched it today and she was talking for a while.
Mm-hmm. So that was bad on Tulsi's part.
Yeah, she should have
held it for later.
She should have either held it or gone into it quicker.
Yeah.
Because dude, the Tulsi destroys. That's pretty much one of the reasons Tulsi is up there, is because she's like one of the only candidates that's willing to actually call people out.
I thought it was because Russia put her in there. That's what Hillary Clinton said.
Dude, Kamala Harris, though, I truly think that she's like the worst Democratic candidate in the field.
I do also.
Like and I'm including like even like the people who didn't even make the debates. I think she's worse than them.
Mm-hmm.
She has absolutely zero substance. Like, what policy does she have that isn't either already someone else's policy or someone else doesn't already have like a better policy for? I can't think of a single one.
Okay, so now we're going to get into talking about monopolies, because this is the next moment that Yang kind of shined. Him and Warren had another back and
Yang
forth.
was shining the entire debate. Even when he wasn't talking, he still looked great up there. I want him to get some gold chains, really spice up his look.
What I loved about this debate is Yang and Warren really had good back and forths. There was multiple in the debate.
Yeah.
That was him and the front runner, basically.
And that's really key for Yang. Again, just because the media is going to play the clips of Warren, and if you just get Yang in there along with it, just because he happens to be the one that's arguing with Warren, it's very good for Yang.
All right, so I'm going to play the clip.
Let's turn to the growing concerns over the power of big tech companies. Mr. Yang, Senator Warren is calling for companies like Facebook, Amazon, and Google to be broken up. Is she right? Does that need to happen?
As usual, Senator Warren is 100% right in diagnosing the problem. There are absolutely excesses in technology, and in some cases, having them divest parts of their business is the right move. But we also have to be realistic that competition doesn't solve all of the problems. It's not like any of us wants to use the fourth best navigation app. That would be like cruel punishment. There's a reason why no one is using Bing today. Sorry, Microsoft, it's true. So it's not like breaking up these big tech companies will revive Main Street businesses around the country. And as the parent of 2 young children, I'm particularly concerned about screen use and its effect on our children. Studies clearly show that we're seeing record levels of anxiety and depression coincident with smartphone adoption and social media use. Breaking up the tech companies does nothing to make our kids healthier. What we have to do is we have to home in on the specific problems we're trying to solve and use 21st century solutions for 21st century problems. Using a 20th century antitrust framework will not work. We need new solutions and a new toolkit.
Thank you. Senator Warren, is Mr. Yang wrong? Your response, please.
Look, I'm not willing to give up and let a handful of monopolists dominate our economy and our democracy. It's time to fight back. Think about it this way. When you talk about how it works in competition, about 8%, 9% of all retail sales happen in bricks and sticks stores, happen at Walmart. About 49% of all sales online happen in one place. That's Amazon. It collects information from every little business. And then Amazon does something else. It runs the platform, gets all the information, and then goes into competition with those little businesses. Look, you get to be the umpire in the baseball game, or you get to have a team, but you don't get to do both at the same time. We need to enforce our antitrust laws, break up these giant companies that are dominating big tech, big pharma, big oil, all of them.
Okay, so Yang's main point there was basically that with tech companies, monopolies are kind of different, and it's kind of changed the landscape of it because no one's going to use like the second or third best search engine. So there's like kind of natural monopolies because competition kind of erodes because people want to use the best product overall. So there's and you can't really compete necessarily with that. But Warren did bring up good points in relation to Amazon with how with Amazon Basics and stuff like that, they can basically like use the data like that all the private label people are using, and then they can put themselves ahead with their own products ahead of other people's.
I don't really see that as a big deal because like anyone can go on Amazon and do exactly what.
Yeah, but they purposely put their own products ahead of other ones. They can do that. So what she's saying is it's basically like they're the platform and the people selling on it, and
well, no, it
can lead to problems.
I'm kind of fine with Amazon putting their products first. It's their damn platform.
It is, yeah, but she's saying that it's bad for competition.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, just speaking from personal experience,
I know, but with
I think
scale,
Amazon's competition's pretty good. You
Yeah,
get like 20 sellers on the same listing. That price is going to tank in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to wait 6 months for it to go back up again.
I think it becomes more problematic at scale. Like if Amazon keeps growing larger and larger, and they just kind of keep increasing.
Well, I do
their
think there's a point where
amount of
Amazon
costs.
could become too big, but I don't think it would be anything related to that. I would think it would be because they expand into like other areas, which they're already doing. So in this big tech section, right after this little back and forth, there was another moment where Yang jumped in, butted into the conversation, and I just love it because I think he really needed. That was one of the things that a lot of Yang Gang people were saying. They really wanted him to be more aggressive in the debates,
And he definitely was.
I thought
in
he
this
did.
debate.
And the fact that he was aggressive and it worked, it will only just
He
give
chose
him,
good moments too,
Yes.
because they're issues he's passionate
Yes.
about. So they kind of let him go in on it. It's not like where Booker's yelling over people for like a minute.
That's like a very key thing, is picking the right time to butt in. And when you have like a 3-hour debate, and you know that if you butt in more than like 3 times, you're going to start making yourself look like the angry Bill de Blasio on the end of the end of the stage. So, but I think he's just going to have even more confidence going into the next debate.
And when the size of the stage decreases,
yes,
it will be very beneficial.
I'm kind of really hoping that Booker, O'Rourke, Klobuchar don't qualify. I'd be fine with Gabbard. Because then she can take out another candidate on the stage. Oh, did you see the clip after the debate of like Yang coming out and meeting Zach Grauman?
Oh yeah, and they hugged each other, and he was like shaking him.
Like, yeah, that was great. You could just tell they were like genuinely like freaking pumped up.
Yeah,
he did a good job. No matter what some news outlets like New York Times say. I'm a New York Times subscriber, but they're garbage.
All right. So next up, we have Yang's final statement, where he gives a shout out to a friend of the Yang community, Fred the Felon. And here's the clip.
Yang?
First, I want to thank all the voters tuned in at home. If you don't feel like you answered you got your question answered tonight, it's understandable. There are 12 of us. I'm going to be answering voter questions for 10 straight hours this Friday. My website, yang2020.com. And if you ask your question tonight, there's a better chance I'll get to it. My surprising friendship. It's been so much fun running for president because I've gotten to meet so many Americans I never would have gotten to meet otherwise. The friendship that sticks out for me is a guy named Fred, who's an avid Trump supporter, a trucker. He let me ride in his truck for hours. He spent some time in jail. I heard about his experiences trying to get other people off of drugs. And I'm happy to say that after our ride together, he actually said that he would move from Donald Trump to my campaign, which was a thrill for me, and we've remained in touch ever since. The truth is that what happened to the 4 million manufacturing workers here in Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Iowa did not care about our political party. The fourth industrial revolution is now migrating from manufacturing workers to retail, call centers, transportation, as well as to white-collar workers like attorneys, pharmacists, and radiologists. It does not care about our party. Donald Trump had a set of solutions in 2016. What did he say? He said, we're going to build a wall, we're going to turn the clock back, we're going to bring the old jobs back. America, we have to do the opposite of all of these things. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society as quickly as possible. We have to evolve in the way we think about ourselves and our work and our value. It is not left, it is not right, it is forward, and that is where we must take the country in 2020.
Mr. Yang, thank you very much.
So I read an article, I forget which website it is, but we'll put it up on the screen, that was saying that Yang had the best answer. It was like him tied with Beto, possibly, for the best answer to the ending question.
And Beto's the best storyteller of all time.
Yes, he is the best storyteller of all time. That's really all he has going for him. That and before Yang, it was skateboarding, but Yang's taken that over. So they said there were like 3 candidates who pretty much didn't even answer the question.
Yeah.
Tom Steyer, our favorite, I can't get away from him. Last night he popped up in my YouTube ads twice. He's on like a TV commercial the other day. I searched Andrew Yang into my browser this morning. First thing that pops up, Tom Steyer. I'm like,
dude, he's just throwing money away. Dude,
oh yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. That's how much money he has.
Yeah, I know. But I heard Shapiro say he spent like $6.6 million on online ads.
Oh, well, no, I read something that for every dollar he's had donated to his campaign, he spent like $8 or $9 to get it.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's such a terrible ROI. But he didn't even. The question was like name like wasn't it pretty much like.
Yeah, it was inspired from the Ellen DeGeneres. Yeah, so George W.
You were
Bush
supposed to like
thing.
name You're supposed to name like a surprising friendship, ideally with someone that you disagree with. And Tom Steyer's answer, it was he named a climate activist, and his reasoning of why it was surprising seemed to be because she was a minority and a woman.
Yeah,
that is a pretty awful answer. So I think he had the worst one.
He didn't do too hot in the debate.
Not really.
He didn't bring anything to. No, he shouldn't.
All right, so I think it's really. It's so stupid for Steyer to even be up on the stage in the first place because one, he bought his way onto the stage. That's going to already turn off so many people. And then two, he's up there as a billionaire trying to say why we need to get rid of billionaires.
You just have no authenticity.
You have zero credibility on the issue.
Yeah.
It's just so silly. He shouldn't be up there. And then also the fact that he just stared into the camera like I like that Yang and pretty much all the candidates did this. They talk to the audience in the actual theater. Steyer's up there like this. He'll be there for like a minute and a half straight, like doing this. Hello, my name is Tom Steyer. That's my Trump voice. I don't know why I use the Trump voice. But it's got to be so awkward because you're there sitting as an audience member and this guy's just staring off in this weird direction where nobody is actually sitting the whole time for 2 minutes straight. I don't know. I feel like it would just be awkward.
Well, debates themselves are just weird.
They are weird, but I just can't stand Tom Steyer. He should not be up there.
I think you're probably nitpicking with the staring into the camera one. That's definitely just because you don't like him.
I know, I am.
Yeah.
But back to what I was saying, and then there were basically like three other candidates who just named like John McCain, which is kind of like a fine answer, I guess, but it's pretty standard. Yang was basically they were saying he's like the only one who actually named like an actual person, not a fellow politician that you like work with, like an actual human being.
Yeah, it was someone he met along the campaign.
Yeah, and I've talked to Fred before. Good guy, very passionate, hardworking member of the Yang Gang. If you don't know who Fred is, he's the guy who made the Yang 2020 truck. And dude, I think I tweeted a reply to him when he showed off his truck and saying like he has the sickest ride in the country. Like, dude,
it is pretty cool.
No, that is literally, there is not a better thing that you could be more proud of driving down the highway than that thing.
Imagine if you had a whole fleet of them.
Oh, that'd be so cool. And one of Harris's early answers about Trump, she was talking about the Constitution and upholding that, and that's why we need to impeach Trump, which seems like a perfectly fine thing to say. But then she goes on later during Guns to say that if like the Congress didn't do what she wanted after like 100 days, she would sign a bunch of executive orders, like passing background checks, which everyone supports background checks.
And it was banning assault weapons. She was going to do that from executive order too.
Which is just,
I don't even know if that's capable. If you're capable of doing that.
That's like where I'm going back to Kamala. She has no actual principles. She just says whatever sounds the best. It's so it's no wonder that she's gone from like 15% to now where even Yang's passing her in polls.
She would be very dangerous in all of this because everything would be from executive order. I think
I would actually be like extremely uncomfortable. Like, I don't even agree with like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and like on a lot of their progressive stuff, but I would rather have them be as president than Kamala Harris.
Oh, dude, I would take Bernie Sanders 100 times over Kamala Harris.
Like, I would legit be like uncomfortable if Kamala Harris was the president.
I have a great deal of respect for Bernie Sanders, though.
Yeah, Bernie's a good guy.
Yeah.
If anyone watches like his hour-long Joe Rogan, you like can't come away with that and be like, think bad of him. I think he's a very good guy. I think he's very has a lot of integrity. So going more into Kamala, so she, as usual, she kind of wasted most of the debate just making these attacks on Trump, which isn't going to get you any voters. Elizabeth Warren was like laughing at her. She's like, will you join me?
Join me to fight to suspend Donald Trump from Twitter.
Yeah, and Elizabeth Warren's just like, no, and goes right back into what she was like saying.
When I called on Twitter to suspend Donald Trump's account, that you did not agree, and I would urge you to join me.
So look, I don't just want to push Donald Trump off Twitter. I want to push him out of the White House. That's our job.
Join me in saying that his Twitter account should be shut down.
Let's figure out why it is that we have had laws on the books.
You can't say your corporate responsibility if it doesn't apply to everyone. I'm not finished. And so what I am saying is that it seems to me that you would be able to join me in saying the rule has to apply to Twitter the same way it does to Facebook.
Look, I think all of the rules should apply across the board. I don't have a problem with that.
So you will join me in saying Twitter should shut down that account.
Kamala is so lame. That was so lame.
If you ban Trump's Twitter, he's going to start using the presidential alert system to send out his message.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
Like it's not going to lead to
I wouldn't
less.
even be mad
if you ban Trump's Twitter, it's going to lead to more like craziness, not less.
If we started getting presidential alerts directly from Trump that were in the style of his tweets,
I would love
I'll
tell you what presidential alert I want to get. I want to get a presidential alert saying your $1,000 has been deposited into your account.
Oh, that would be awesome.
So one more thing that happened during the debate was for Yang. He was asked about the opioid crisis. Yang has by far the best solution when it comes to drug reform in terms of decriminalizing and all the drugs, because addiction shouldn't be a crime.
Yeah.
And another thing that I noticed in terms of just Yang's overall like confidence, right after his answer, Beto went, and Yang was actually, I don't think he'd really done this in a debate before. He was like speaking like just during someone else's turn, not interrupting them, but agreeing with them. He actually was like, yes, right after Beto.
Preach, Beto.
Yeah, Beto was said that he wanted to, instead of prescribing opioids for like pain and surgeries, that you should instead prescribe medical marijuana. And Yang was like, yes. And then like 5 seconds later, he was like, preach, Beto. Last thing that I want to talk about is we didn't play the clip, but Cory Booker asked Yang.
Oh, about the minimum wage.
Yes. He brought up, he was like, my friend Andrew Yang, I'm for UBI, but what I want to ask is, will you join me in saying that we should institute a $15 minimum wage? And unfortunately, Yang didn't get to respond, so we're going to respond on his behalf. So Cory Booker, why are we not going to give you a $15 minimum wage? Well, because if we give everyone instead $1,000 a month and you're making $9 an hour, if you average that out over a year's worth of work, it will actually give you a $6 raise. So that person making $9 per hour is already going to get to $15 per hour just because of the freedom dividend. And then also, we could also go into the things. I really think that a $15 federal minimum wage would just be awful for small businesses, especially because it's very different in a city like, or a state like California, out in like the middle of the country.
Kansas or something.
Yes, like $15 an hour is a lot different.
Regionally, the economies are very different.
Yes, so there shouldn't be a federally mandated minimum wage. It should be up to the states to decide.
Yeah.
The economies are too different in different parts of the country.
Yeah.
Like I can see like businesses like legit going out in like the middle of the country. It's not going to affect like the big mega. It wouldn't really affect like Walmart, Amazon.
No, it doesn't affect large corporations. They can actually afford to pay.
They can absorb it. But it's those small businesses, those companies that are like just starting out. It could lead to them hiring like less.
But here's
employees.
the thing: those are the most important companies you need to keep alive.
They're
fuel in the economy,
the backbone of the American economy.
Yeah.
So.
And Yang knows this through his, history and entrepreneurship, which is why he doesn't support a $15 minimum wage.
So winners and losers. Who were your big losers, Zach?
Big losers?
Yes.
I would say Warren was a minor loser because she showed some weakness and she was on her heels a lot during the night because she was the focus of attack because she's now kind of the front runner. And if you already liked Warren, then you probably would come away still liking Warren from this. But I think it showed some holes in her, that she's not like a flawless front runner by any means, and she's weak.
Yeah, I like if she had a debate performance where she like knocked it out of the park, she would just elevate. But I think this type of performance, it's something that she's not going to lose her support, but I don't really think she gained a lot of new voters. I think if anything, like, there might be a few people who were like Bernie that maybe switched to Warren, and now they're like rethinking that. They're like, you know what? I like Bernie. He came back strong. He got the AOC endorsement.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally they switched to Yang, but
Steyer, definitely a loser.
He shouldn't even be on the debate stage. It's very unfortunate that he is already on the next debate stage, because I really don't want to see him up there. I mean, it's just like,
he didn't bring anything new or noteworthy to the table. He didn't, and he has no substance.
He has no chance. Why doesn't he just back out and throw all of his money behind whichever candidate that actually
has a chance?
That one has a chance, and
he likes.
Yeah, closely resembles whatever he wants.
Who else do you think was a loser? Because I think those are my kind of losers. I have people that I think did not as good as they should have.
I don't know. You could call like Tulsi Gabbard a loser in the sense that
I thought she had a weak performance.
Because she didn't get to do her Tulsi destroys line.
That's her main thing. But also, one thing I don't like about Tulsi is she often doesn't actually answer the question, because she wants to talk about foreign policy so much. Yeah. She'll answer it for 30 seconds and then go to her like 2-minute spiel about like ending foreign wars and stuff, which is fine. But when you do it so much, I personally just don't like hearing it all the time. I'd rather have her give some substance on other issues.
That was one thing that I think like Yang has worked on, is because I mean, like almost all of his policies do sort of relate to UBI.
They all kind of tie back to it. Just
because UBI is such, as I was explaining earlier, it affects everything. Yeah. So everything you kind of, people will make fun of him for it, but it's like, but you kind of can relate everything back to UBI. It all starts with UBI.
Joe Biden, I don't think he hurt himself at all during this debate, but he brought more energy, but he still had as many gaffes as he usually does.
He said at one point he was talking about abortion, and he accidentally said end Roe v. Wade.
Oh, that was ridiculous, dude.
Like, come on.
When we were watching that live, we were freaking out. We were like, oh my God.
We both laughed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
I don't think he did anything to hurt himself.
If you're a Democrat who's like against Medicare for all, you might have liked some of Biden's points. But there's really just not much to talk about with Biden, because he doesn't represent. He doesn't have that signature policy that he's fighting for. I think Kyle Kulinski pointed this out. Like, if you think of Yang, you think of UBI. When you think of Bernie, you think of Medicare for all. When you think of Warren, you think of like taking down Wall Street. Yeah. Tulsi, you think of ending the wars. When you think
Beto's trying to do mandatory gun buyback is his thing.
I guess when you think of Beta, you think of mandatory gun buyback.
Yeah.
But a lot of these other candidates, especially Biden, they don't have that thing that they're really fighting for, and that's what separates yourself, I think, in a primary. Because whoever has like the most passionate, engaged voters, which are going to be the voters that are fighting for something.
Yeah,
that's who's usually
as a candidate
wins.
It's hard to get people to just support you for you. You need the ideas and like an inspiration behind you, because then the people, they're not just fighting for you; they're fighting for something they believe in themselves, like a greater idea. Castro disappeared for me from the debate. I don't have any memorable things in my head from it. No positives, no negatives. He was just kind of there. I don't think he helped himself at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say he had a bad performance by any means, but he didn't have
any standout.
Yeah, in the last debate, he did have some standout moments when he was calling out Biden.
Yeah, but I thought that he looked poor in that moment.
A lot of them did, but negative attention is still like attention.
The old Roger Stone rule.
Yeah, when you're when you're at a like very low in the polls, like any just time your name's said, it kind of helps. Which is why it's like so key that just the fact that 5 different candidates said the words universal basic income.
Yeah.
We forgot the big. No, I know who was a big loser. Kamala Harris was a big, huge loser.
Edit that back to the beginning, dude.
Yes, Kamala Harris. and for all the reasons we talked about, I think she needs to like just get out of the race. She's not going to win. She has zero shot. She's pretty much like Hillary Clinton.
When I think of what I don't like in Hillary Clinton, everything is present in Kamala Harris.
I mean, I don't think of like huge corruption issues.
Yeah, but the scripted, poll-tested politician.
The only when I think of Kamala Harris, the only policy I can even think of is like her flip-flopping back on Medicare for all, eliminating private insurance, and like they asked her about abortion, and the question was like, what will you do to make sure states, if they're trying to pass, because they're not the moderators aren't asking you what is your opinion on abortion, because every candidate up there has the same exact opinion on abortion. So the question was like, what will you do if states, Republican states, like pass abortion legislation? How will you stop that? And all she does is for just a minute straight just talk about how important it is that we preserve like Roe v. Wade. That's not answering the question. They're asking how you would do something, not what your belief on abortion is. We already know every single person up there is pro-choice.
Yeah.
She's just not substantive.
So Harris was a loser.
I think candidates that did fine, but they didn't really separate themselves in any way. I'd say like Beto.
I would say Beto.
We talked about.
I would say Booker.
Biden. Yeah, I mean, I think Booker had a fine debate. It's just that
it nothing memorable. It disappears.
Yeah,
it didn't hurt him, didn't help him. I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of like listening to Booker like tell his little vegan stories.
You'll like his documentary. I think I'll send you the link for it.
Like Booker seems like a fun guy.
I think he's a really nice person in real life. But he's definitely a career politician.
He's like a good dad
dude.
guy. He's like your dad. He's like what you think of when you think of a dad. I think
I would say Amy Klobuchar was kind of in the middle. People had her as a winner and some analysis.
I know people had her as a winner. I just think because there's just. I mean, I kind of thought some of her stuff was like pretty weak. She had a lot of sound lines that were meant for like impact.
Yeah, that didn't land.
Well, they either
at
did
least
land,
not with me.
They either did land or they didn't. But even when they did land, I kind of still thought they were silly.
Yeah.
But just the fact that she got like 13 or 14 minutes of speaking time, I think the third most is gonna kind of give her a win just naturally.
Yeah. But I think in terms of the moderates,
Dude, imagine if
I think
Yang had 13 minutes of speaking time.
Yeah. People were saying that she was like her and Pete are kind of like the moderate people now that are rising. And
I don't see any evidence for Klobuchar rising.
I don't either, but they were hyping her post debate though, saying that she was one of the winners. But I think Pete was much more of a winner in that center lane.
I think of the moderates, I think Pete had the best debate.
I think he had a very strong performance. He was powerful. He would jump back at a lot of people. There was a lot of back and forth with him and Beto.
If you like Pete and you watched that debate, you loved his performance. He was kind of in the same sense that Yang needed to be more aggressive. Pete also needed to be more aggressive, and he was.
I think Pete and Yang both had an evolution in this debate, and we're seeing the beginning of what they're going to be like in the future debates.
What do you ultimately think it's going to come down to in say like 3 months? Like who will be the top three?
Oh, I think it will be top 5. I think it will be.
You think the support from like Warren and Biden will drop
I think
up?
It will be Warren, Yang, Biden, Sanders, and Pete.
I think the 4 that are like in it for sure are Warren, Sanders, Yang, and Buttigieg. The one I'm really not sure on is like Biden. I know he
could completely collapse.
I can see him completely collapsing. Like I can never really see him like dropping below like the teens.
He would drop out.
But but that's what I'm saying is if he gets down to that level where it's kind of
where he's not going to win,
because Biden, I don't see any path for Biden necessarily gaining support. It's more of just holding what he already has. And if he starts dropping into those teens, like he's not going to rise back up again. And at that point, when you're like the former vice president, you don't want to embarrass yourself.
Yeah, you don't want to come in like 4th in the primaries.
Yeah, it would just be kind of humiliating. And it's not like he's in there for like a VP spot or like a
but
cabinet
I think
position.
for the first half of the primaries, it's going to be a very crowded field, I think, still. Like 5 or more people the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I think there's going to be a lot of long-lasting candidates.
I agree that they really need to like cut down this debate stage. That's why I'm kind of hoping like nobody else makes it.
Yeah.
Because it was just too many candidates.
To be fair, we're saying that just because Yang's our guy and he's making it.
No.
But if we were like Gabbard people or like Klobuchar people, we'd probably be
with. Well, that's probably true.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have Pete as one of our winners, and then Yang, he's a winner.
Yang is a winner, and so let's try to take our bias from the remove our bias from the situation.
It's kind of impossible, but we'll try.
It is kind of impossible. I think he was a winner just because all the reasons we've already said. He literally was a total unknown a year ago. Like he's going to hit 1 million followers on Twitter soon. And like a year ago, he probably had like what, 2,000 followers?
I think it was like 10,000.
Yeah, something like that.
Basically what we talked about during the whole podcast.
Yeah.
He was more aggressive. He influenced a whole like 20-minute section of the debate.
Yeah, he got other candidates just to bring up universal basic income in a sentence. That's very key.
If the campaign ended tomorrow, you could probably call it a success. So,
but we're not. We're in it to win.
But we're in it to win it. So.
We're in it to win it, baby. There's only one person left that we haven't talked about, and that is Mr. Bernie Sanders.
I wouldn't call him a winner, but I don't think he hurt himself at all. I think he had a strong performance.
I think I can call Bernie a winner.
Actually, yeah, he showed people he came back from the heart attack.
Because I think actually there's like a lot.
He did what he had.
There's like a lot of lines when he talks about like a political revolution and stuff like that. Like that's very key to like his campaign because he's kind of like the more socialist version of Yang, like the older, more socialist version. But they
outdated model.
But they're very they're very similar in the sense of they're both pushing ideas that people be like, oh, that's impossible. Their campaigns have a like similar style in terms of like the grassrootsiness. And
this was a classic Bernie debate. He did classic Bernie lines. He hit it strong.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything.
He wrote the damn bill.
Yeah. He wrote the damn bill. Make sure to tune in next week for episode 3 of the Zach and Matt show.
What are we going to be talking about?
We don't even know because it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened. Yeah. If you guys have any suggestions on how we can improve the show, you could leave those down in the comments.
Yeah, we would also like to start taking questions and topics from listeners. And we're trying to find a way to set that up on Patreon, but hasn't been successful thus far.
Yeah, I know. Our patrons need to submit questions for us. The patrons are supposed to have exclusive ability to submit questions for the show. They aren't even using it, so we're going to have to move to YouTube comments. Come on, patrons.
Yeah. What we're thinking is we want to have on Patreon, every Monday we open like a thing that will be open for the whole week. And there you can submit your topics and questions or just general comments that you want us to discuss on the podcast. And then in like the last 20 minutes of the podcast, we'll spend time just answering those questions and using their topics to run the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you go to patreon.com/Zach and Matt Show, you can
Twitter.com/Zach and Matt Show, Instagram.com/Zach and Matt Show. I don't know any of our others. Reddit.com/u/Zach and Matt Show. Just kidding. Right. Check out our Reddit. It's just Reddit. It's just a bunch of spam.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for watching episode 2
of the Zach and Matt Show.
We will see you next week.